Hello, everybody. My name is Corey Kramer, and I am the leader of the Cyclical Investors Club investing group and YouTube channel. And if you're new to the channel, about 90% of my time I spend on this channel analyzing individual stocks. And this video is going to be a little bit different because it's going to focus on Vanguard's recent report that they put out on with their retirement outlook. So this definitely is investing related, but it's going to be slightly different than my normal individual stock analysis. I'm going to try to do this in one take without any edits. So I might, I might stumble around every now and then, but I'm going to try to just kind of run through some of these data and tell you what I think about it and why learning how to invest in individual stocks and understanding finance is really important for people, especially the people that this report is about. I'm definitely going to be talking my own book a little bit here, but I do want to say, I'm also going to relate it to my personal situation because I'm pretty kind of average to above average in terms of income and savings and all that stuff for my age group and the Gen-Xers. So I don't suggest buying individual stocks unless I've actually bought them myself. So almost everything I do on this channel is I'm just sharing what I'm doing. And I've been doing this for in my 9th year now. Not on YouTube, but over on Seeking Alpha, where I've written almost 500 public articles now on investing in individual stocks. So with that in mind, I've seen a lot of YouTube videos lately, and I'll probably title mine the same, where Vanguard is basically saying the average person in the US can't retire comfortably because of their lack of savings and Social Security and other pensions at the time of retirement. And I absolutely agree with that assessment. And really, I've been doing this long enough now, and I've seen enough of the data over time that I can say that if you really, the bottom 40% of income earners, these are boomers, like boomers that are about ready to retire. So I guess it would be late boomers. So this is the income that they have pretty close to retirement. When we get a little bit more into this report and we get into Gen Xers and millennials, I think we need a big asterisk next to that, their incomes, because they'll probably go up over time. But this income is going to be pretty close to what they have going into retirement. And so a lot of what I'm trying to do is teach people how to get better returns in the stock market. But if you're about ready to retire and you're only making $22,000 a year as your median household income in the 25th percentile, the truth is you're not investing it, right? You're spending all your money. And I started off literally my first adult living on my own job. I made $12,500 working more than full time in the mid to late 90s. So I've definitely been down in the below the 25th percentile. It probably was about like the 20th or 15th percentile at the time, right? Because we've had inflation. But the truth is these folks are not going to have enough money saved for retirement. And really, I would say this goes up for someone who's a boomer, like a late boomer. If you're in the 40th-ish percentile here, and a lot of this depends on where you live, and there's a lot of other factors that go into it. And it's household income, so if you have two people, compared to one, there's differences and so forth. All those things aside, really, if you're in the 40th percentile or below, you don't really have any money to invest. So for those folks, I would say roughly half the people really in this age group, it's probably learning to invest well isn't going to help them out very much at this point in time. So I can't really do too much there. really the folks who are going to benefit the most from learning to invest better are the people right in this curve here. The kind of 40th, we'll say, up, well, more like 50th to 90th, with this 70th percentile in the middle being kind of the peak, like the middle part. So, especially when we get to the younger generations, who frankly are the ones that mostly watch my videos, I don't write a lot about like dividend and income investing. So I do have some retired people that join my service and everything, and watch my videos, but most people are Gen-Xers, millennials, and then even younger, who watch like the YouTube videos and read the articles. So they for them it's even more important to learn to invest, because you have more time to compound better than average returns if you can get them. So you can see here what this is this is the shortfall that this is the first figure. So this is just from Social Security. But if we go down to the second one here, so this includes like investments and so forth. So the amount that needs to be replaced is this like box here. That's not going. The amount needed that isn't likely to be replaced is this little amount above here. So if we look at this 70th percentile, this again we're sticking with late boomers who are getting ready to retire. They're about 17 percentage points short of where people actually would need to kind of maintain the same standard of living that they had going into retirement, with all the caveats that go along with that. Now, if you have more income, then you actually are going to have plenty of money, and you're probably going to spend way less than you actually spent before you retired, because maybe you don't have all the expenses that you had before, or maybe you spent a lot on your family or in your job, and then you don't have those expenses anymore, but you still have all the wealth that you created during that time. So these folks have plenty of money. I think I saw this was about like the top 15% or something. So it's really the folks in here from the 50th to the 70th, if these stats stay the same for younger generations, who can benefit the most by investing better. Now, that's one of the things that Vanguard points out that people can do, although they did it in kind of like a generic way, which is totally understandable. But I want to look at some of the other things that were mentioned. They do say that like like millennials and so forth, who joined the job force later and were automatically enrolled into like save like 401ks and things like that, that their savings are a little bit better. What I would say though is, one, those savings are not free. That's money that they are not spending in their lives, that they could be doing things that they actually want to do that they might not be able to do. And so that, I think it's sometimes we think, oh, well, you save money, that's just like there's no cost for it. Well, there is a cost. There's a cost to your lifestyle. Now, maybe if you're spending money on things that aren't giving you happiness or more independence and things like that, if you're not spending your money wisely, then maybe it's good that you save the money and didn't spend it. But that we don't know that. Maybe there's a trip of a lifetime that you never got a chance to take because you were automatically enrolled in some 401k, which, if you don't ever learn anything about investing, they're going to put you in a target date fund and take like 0.4% of your money each year for 40 years for really doing nothing, and probably getting pretty poor returns. So you're wasting a lot of your money by not learning how to invest, or at least understanding what it's about, so you don't get automatically so you save the money and then somebody else profits from it, right? So that's what the system is set up for right now. Now, it's good that people are saving money, sort of, is if they were going to waste it. If they weren't going to waste it and they were going to spend it on something that was good in their lives, then it's not necessarily a gain. So everybody tends to look at this as just a pure positive. I look at it as kind of mixed. It really depends on what's being done with the money, that's extra money being saved. But the good part is, if it's saved, and people are still young, they have a chance to learn how to invest a little bit better, and they can always change that allocation, and so at least they have options if the money's saved. So that's one positive. Now, one of the other solutions that they get into, they have four. Let me scroll down here, and we will find them. So, retirees can access home equity. So this one was pretty interesting. These are because they're saying, well, you're short, you don't have enough money, what can you do, right? You can work longer, you can invest better, which is what I basically focus on, or not investing worse, right? And this whole Social Security reduction thing, just ignore that. That's not going to happen. So they talk about some of the levers and they try to put some numbers on it. I don't think these numbers are very useful. But what is interesting is so you take the housing situation. This is very dependent on where you live, and where you are willing to move to or downsize if you're willing to downsize. But I thought it was pretty interesting because, let me get the map up here. Where's the map? Here we go. So this is a map of the US, and I found this really interesting. So basically what they're showing here is, I think this is based on real data. People actually, like survey data, people actually did move. So if you sell your house and you move out of California, you can increase your buying power basically by like 77% in some other area. And so because California is very expensive, I think Hawaii was maybe the highest. Yeah, 116%. So if you live in Hawaii and you want to move to someplace else that's cheaper, then you can get a lot of money for your home and you can have that extra money for retirement. That's what this is all about. And honestly, and we see it happening, definitely we see people out of the Northeast moving to some areas like Texas, which is sort of neutral here. But the thing is, you have like an upfront cost to this housing. So what you're doing in these states is you have a forced savings basically, where you spend a lot of money on your housing, and then hopefully if you're willing to move or downsize, you can get some of that money out. So rather than being in the market, you're essentially, you get to live in your house and you get to live in maybe a nice climate like California, but you're locking that money up so you can't invest it in anything other than your house. And then you have to get that big transaction and actually physically move to access your illiquid asset that's in your home. And if you're willing to move someplace else, you can live a similar lifestyle potentially and have all this extra cash for retirement. So a lot of lower income people, if they owned their house, can do pretty well with this strategy. I would also, people who like downsize to, like, you see like RV living and van life and things like that, where some retirees want to go travel around and they just get like a van or a small RV and they sell their house. They may not have had a lot of income, but that can generate a significant amount of money along with the reduced cost of kind of not having a home and everything else and taxes and all that stuff that goes along with it. So that is a strategy that people are using, and I say good for them. You could also move to a cheaper country, and if you have a house to sell, then even if you have a low income, that's a strategy that people can use too, especially if they live in these high value home. My sister lives in Virginia, and their home is a lot more expensive than mine. So which brings me to myself, because I live in Iowa, so you can see our homes I'm not going to generate a lot of capital selling my home. Nationally, I have like an average size house in a good location and everything, but I couldn't sell it necessarily and generate a bunch of money to help me live in Florida, right? Because it's going to cost me quite a bit to live in Florida. Now, maybe if I downsize to like a little condo, then maybe it might work out even. But one thing I will say is the trade-off is, so the average mortgage and taxes and so forth that's associated with owning a home that people pay as a percentage of their income in the United States, the numbers I looked at were about 27% of people's income. I would actually imagine that could be higher in some of these higher, like Colorado or something, in these higher home priced states. But because my home wasn't expensive and I did buy it during the Great Recession, my home is only about 9%. Like my mortgage payment and taxes and everything is only 9% of my income. So that gives me more money that I have to invest. So investing becomes even more important for people in that situation because you have the extra money that's not being invested in the home that you could potentially tap later on in retirement, but you're not spending as much money on that home either. So it really does depend kind of on where you live and how things are. If you have a average size house and you go down to something smaller, like when the kids are gone and everything, that could make up for it. If I wanted to move to Arizona, I could probably get a condo for the same price as I could sell my house in Iowa. But it's pretty interesting. It is very dependent on where your real estate is at, whether you can pull that off or not. But definitely, a lot of people do it, and it's worth thinking about. I want to go down here to so the younger generations. So this isn't as we have to be a little careful looking at this data because if you're a Gen-Xer and you're making your household income is $61,000 right now, you still have your prime working years ahead of you, and that could go up. So in the future, this number could be much higher, which could give you more income in order, more savings and investments and so forth in order to live off of. And it's especially true for the portion of your investments that are in the stock market. So this is why I think for Gen Xers, for millennials, for folks that are younger, if you can get slightly better than average stock market returns, but do that for a long time, that's a great way to fill this gap from 53% to 68% that you might need, right? So they actually show millennials, probably because they saved a little bit more from those automatic enrollments, that they project that they'll do this. But the projections that these guys have on actually what you can make investing, I think, are low if you actually learn how to invest a little bit better, learn to make fewer mistakes, and learn to get better returns from picking individual stocks. So this is me kind of talking my book, but it's also me actually living my life because I don't live in a state where I can cash my house out for a lot of extra money. But I'm also young enough that I have time to compound my investment returns at a very good rate, more safely than someone who takes a standard target date fund approach. So, and then accepts the fees and stuff that go along with that. There's not really any fees associated with individual investing anymore, unless you join like a service like mine for a while and try to learn some stuff about investing. To me, that's more like school or helping somebody crunch numbers. There's plenty of people that join my service who can do it, what I'm doing, once they learn how to do it. But since it's my job and I wake up every day and update everything and I analyze like 10 stocks a day, sometimes it's worth to have somebody do that for you so you can like enjoy your life a little bit more. But the truth is, like, if you're not close to this 50th percentile, you don't really have much of a chance to save enough for retirement. You're going to have to spend a lot less in retirement than you spend when you're working if you're at around this 50th percentile or below. So learning how to invest well is a valuable asset. I feel like I'm pitching a little bit too hard here, but I think that's the truth. That's all I could really think about when I was looking at this. Because if you have high enough income, you can save pretty easily. You don't have to be that good. I interact with a lot of people that are retired already, and a lot of them have plenty of money to retire. And so they aren't trying to get like the type of returns that I'm trying to get. And so a lot of times I'll be aiming for a pretty low buy price on a stock because I'm trying to get better than average returns. And they're like, well, I don't care if I get better than average returns. If it's just okay and I know the stock, if it's Walmart or something, and I'm familiar with it and I know they're not going to go broke, I'll take my smaller returns and just put it in there. So that's why it's not as important, I would say, for the top maybe like 15% or so, to learn how to invest that well once they're and then the older you get, the to some degree it's not as important because you don't have as much time necessarily to compound. It is important to avoid mistakes, but I think a lot of the investment advisors are set up once people get to retirement to be overly conservative, and so the mistakes aren't such a problem as long as somebody has like an advisor, because they're basically going to try to stop you from really screwing things up. But what they aren't going to do is, when you're younger, I think that's where the damage is really being done, because people aren't learning how to invest, and they're letting people, one, they're paying too many fees in these target date funds. Two, they don't really understand like the risks. I mean, most people don't understand a lot of things about investing, but it's worth understanding them. Even if you eventually have like a financial advisor, you want to understand what's going on so you can assess what they're doing, understand maybe why something fell a lot, on during a particular period, or rose a lot. And if you understand the fundamentals, you can at least understand that a little bit better. So yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's hard to just say. I mean, what I've noticed is, and look, I'm right around this 70th percentile, give or take, too. I'm not in like the 90th. So I know how important it is for me. And I'm like, okay, well, if it's important for me, there's a whole lot of other people that are in the situation too. And I think that's really an avenue where people can improve their lives a lot, just by learning to invest. And if you're watching this YouTube video, you're probably one of those people. And I would say just keep at it, because it gets more important the closer you get to retirement. And you're asking these questions and you want to know what the downside risk is to your investments, what the upside risk is. Well, if you've been investing for 15 or 20 years before retirement, you're going to learn your lessons. And so when you get to that point, that's usually when you have the most money saved and when you can potentially lose the most money. So when you're in your 30s and 40s, that's the time, if you haven't done so already, to just start this process and keep learning. So that's my little public service announcement. I have a few other things, but that's the main thing I wanted to kind of point out here that I don't think most people are pointing out. The opportunity here to close this gap is via investing of one form or another. For most people, that's going to be the easiest and best way. All right, thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button if you like individual stock analysis, which is what I usually do, and I'll see everybody later.